Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen out there in internet land. My name is Brian Trippett. I am your front porch conservative. Welcome back for another session of Chattin on the Porch, a live stream conversation show where we bring folks to you talking about things that are going on in the world. And boy, is there a lot to talk about these days. We're letting everybody kind of settle in right now. This is going to be a fabulous show. We've got a guest who's returning who is probably one of the most unique content creators in all of social media, as his focus is on one particular aspect of the entertainment industry. And given everything that's been going on over the past 4 or 5 months since we first talked months ago, I wanted to bring him back because there is a lot of stuff to get into and questions that I want to have answered. Again, my name is Brian Trippett. This is Chattin on the Porch. I am known affectionately to some as the Front Porch Conservative. So we're letting everybody filter into the room. We'll just kind of drop the music down here a little bit, ease on into this thing. So as I say, there's a whole lot going on in the world right now, and none of it's really good. So in moments like this, we turn to a lot of different things to help us get by. We turn to our faith, we turn to our family, we turn to our friends, and in some cases, we try to turn to entertainment. But even these days, there's a lot going on in the entertainment world. So if you're trying to figure out what's going on, who do you go talk to? Well, in my case, and in the case of a lot of people in social media, we turn to probably one of the most informed, sharpest observed individuals that is out there. His channel has been around now for almost 4 years, but in that time, he is putting out information to people and giving a lot of thought-provoking commentary about it. Things that we don't normally think about. We look at the TV screen, we look at the movie screen, we see the images that are presented to us, but do we understand what's really going on behind the scenes? That is the blessing of my next guest and his specialty. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you, as always, the inestimable Culture Casino. Culture, welcome back to the Front Porch.
Thank you. I'm terrified. Now I'm looking around to see if there's somebody else coming because that was a heck of a buildup. I do appreciate it, though. Thanks for having me.
Brother, every word of it is true. How have you been, man?
Wonderful. I'm glad to be back. I was thrilled. I was tickled that you wanted to have me back on your channel. The opportunity we had to meet in person. I enjoyed your company, and this is just every time I come here, it's icing on the cake. So thanks for having me back.
Oh, man. I mean, yeah, absolutely. We met in Orlando last year and we had our first conversation, I think 3 or 4 months ago. And in that time, oh my God, the stuff that's going on in the entertainment industry. I'm like, man, I got to get you back on here because there's things I want to try to know and understand. And I think viewers of this channel and people who are watching this live stream, maybe they're not subscribers to either one of our channels, but this is an opportunity for people to kind of go behind the curtain and like, man, I didn't know this was going on. So there's a blue number of subjects I want to get into. So let's just dive right on in.
Go for it.
Last time we talked, I think they had either just started or they were on the verge. The Writers Guild of America and the Screen Actors Guild were on the verge of a strike. The first time in, 60 plus years that both of them had
dual striking.
Yeah. The first time in 60 plus years that both major Hollywood unions had been out at the same time. In other words, Tinseltown ground to a complete and absolute halt. And the running joke that I had with friends of mine was, if a tree fell on a writer or an actor in the woods, would anyone in America really care? And strange enough, I don't think they did. But laying aside my macabre sense of humor, so the Writers Guild, as I understand it, and stop me if I'm wrong, the Writers Guild has now settled their strike. What, about 3 weeks ago, I guess?
Maybe 2 weeks ago. I mean, they made major progress, and they finally ratified the deal on Monday. This week.
Okay.
Yeah. No, but you're correct. I mean, they really started to hammer out some details. They had some gap points, and then they went in earnest and they negotiated their way through. So yeah, you're right. It takes a while to ratify a deal. You've got to get all the members in on the deal.
So. Oh wow. Yeah. So okay. So let me ask. We'll deal with each union simultaneously. What was it that was making the Writers Guild be willing to go out on what was like a 3 or 4 month strike? That's a long time by union standards.
Well, anytime you exceed 100 days, that's insane. For them, it's really crazy because I mean that's a third of the year of income. If you subtract subtract the weeks that they're allotted for downtime, That's a third of the year. It's gone. And so once they went over 100 days, that was concerning. And same thing will be if the actors make it that far. But no, what got them fired up? What were they wildly concerned about? AI. I mean, but their concern about AI was that it would replace them, not that if they themselves used it, it would be okay. Well, I mean, the deal that was negotiated, and we have experts that I talk to all the time, like Script Doctor, who was a WGA member, because he's a professional screenwriter and writer in general. I mean, he does more than just that. But their problem was that they were going to be replaced because a showrunner, a producer, whatever, an originator of thought could go to could take that idea, punch it into an AI thing, and you would end up with a compelling story. Of course, it doesn't work that way. I've had access to some pretty advanced AI tools, and they still are rather transparent that they're not human, but they're getting better. And that was their concern. So they managed to negotiate into their deal that any material that had ever been used to inform any form of AI that was tied to anything that was based in television or film, or possibly even the books that were used for television or film, could not inform the AI. It couldn't be the part of the large language model, which means pretty much all the AI large language models are out, because that's the material that they were fed. We had an actor come forward and talk about the fact that he narrated all the Harry Potter books, right? He did the audiobooks for all of that. Mm-hmm. Well, he went to a recent conference to put on display the fact that it had him narrating something else that he never did, and it was perfectly done with his voice, perfect intonation, pauses, and all of his little nuances that he uses when he speaks. And he said, that's not me. That's AI. And so that's what they're afraid of. And for good reason. I mean, my editor, you perhaps, if you've watched my material, my editor, Mr. Grant Gregory, has a perfect audio imitation of me. And he can do me reading ridiculous things, which is fun. He just feeds in whatever it is, and poof, I'm out there. The other thing he can do, which I've recently done, released one video already, is I did he had me do a video in Hindi. He took one of the videos that I created in English that had already released in English, and put me out there doing it in Hindi. But we're going to do it amazing. Yeah, we're going to do it in Hindi. We're going to start doing that. We're going to have alternate languages. So we'll have Hindi, maybe German, Spanish. So, yeah.
Well, okay, now you got me curious. Of all the languages to pick, why was Hindi settled upon?
It's the largest audience.
Really? For your channel?
No, it's just one of the largest audiences that you can reach on YouTube, on the tube.
I did not realize that.
Well, consider this: my biggest performing video to date, the largest performance, was from a video I did about a film called RRR. You've probably heard of it.
Yeah, I've heard of the film. Yeah.
Yeah, and so I did an English version review of that film, and it was, I don't know, 60,000 people plus. I don't know, and that came about in just a couple of months. And every time I've gone back to the opportunity to do a review, or I get to see a film that's done from India, I do a review on it, and the numbers are fantastic. And they are believe it or not, I think the second largest audience that I have. And and then of course European countries. Now I've got Asian fans and things like that as well, across Japan and a few other countries. But it's like the Brits, the Aussies, those are easy because I know them and I hang out with them all the time. But when you reach an audience in India, you're like, well, thank you. So yeah, and Hindi is so widespread there. And of course, there are other languages in India. I mean, Telugu, et cetera, but our dialects, I should say. But Hindi is just it's huge, and so I think we'll probably continue on in the future. In fact, Grant and I are meeting later today to talk about that. But anyway, getting back to it, the fact is they are afraid of that for good reason. And Curry Casino, indeed, I love Indian food. I do. I love Mexican food too. So yeah.
Well, yeah, it amazes me. I've been at this for a few months now, but every so often I'll get comments on my videos and someone will say, "Yeah, I'm in South Africa. I love your work." And I'm like, "The hell are you doing watching a kid from West Virginia and you're South Africa? What the hell's the matter with you?" Like,
Yeah, yeah,
really?
it happens. I get super chats occasionally in Zardoz dollars. That's not what they are. It's South African rands, but
Oh,
it comes
God.
the ticker on it ZAR. So you start to learn all these wonderful foreign currencies. It's fantastic. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, let me ask you a question. And so the Writers Guild just as of Monday has ratified their new
Mhm,
contract.
mhm.
It was now here's and if I'm wrong in this assumption, straighten me out. But I
Yeah.
was under the assumption that the Screen Actors Guild would follow suit shortly after the Writers Guild. Now, I guess I was misunderstanding the timing. I mean, I'd read the headlines from maybe a couple of weeks ago saying Writers Guild has agreed to new contract. Well, what I didn't realize was, and you've now straightened me out, is that the Writers Guild had like tentatively, okay, we'll take this thing for a vote. Is the
Oh,
anticipation that the SAG will now follow suit, or are they still going to hang out there? And if so, why?
I think that they're asking for both. Okay, so I'm gonna put this up out there up front.
Okay,
Both groups are preparing themselves for a long siege, and the studios were also prepared for a long siege because the writers knew they were asking for a big ask.
okay,
Okay, it's certain levels of protection. They were asking for something they didn't get, which was guaranteed writers' rooms, guaranteed size of writers' rooms. They got some concessions on that, but they did not get what they wanted. You have something called the Taylor Sheridan rule now that allows for a single showrunner like him, who can write an entire show by himself, to not be bound to having a certain size writers room. And again, mostly you always have an originator. You bring the writers in later. So once you have like somebody that's fleshing out an idea and they pitch it and it's, people have read it and they're like, wow, this is good. That's usually the point at which you bring in a writer, but you don't usually have somebody like him or the Tyler Perry or somebody like that. They can just write
mhm,
something, and that's what he does. Um, so you've got that, and then they got most of their asks, but they were all qualified, and I imagine that we'll be right back here in 3 years because these are negotiated every 3 years, which is
oh
something else most
wow,
people didn't know until this year. Is so and again, I went through the last writer strike, and we lost a lot of really good shows. Here's something we also lost this time around, and this is something that I don't think a lot of these people, for being writers, and they should
hmm
have life experience and be well rounded and well read and have a whole lot of background on what their profession is, and the history of their profession. They should
sure,
have paid attention, because after every one of these strikes, whether it's the writers or the actors or whatever, but most definitely the writers, there's contraction of writers,
okay,
and they should have been well aware. So there's a decent chance, and this is speculative, but I've talked to some people that know, and I think Script Doctor would probably agree. We're going to lose a bunch of writers because, despite the fact that they were able to negotiate some of their points forward, we've already exceeded the point of peak television. And I'm not the only person saying that. There are experts that work in network television that have been saying this for a few years now, and this time everything points to the fact that they're right. Peak television being when we were producing the most numbers of shows and the greatest numbers for the greatest amount of channels and outlets. It's gone, and we've already seen contraction within the major players that produce premium television like HBO and things like that. Though they've gone through a period of contraction. They do less original shows, less quality original shows, and they'll continue to do less. All the cable channels are leaning more into quote unquote reality based television, which is still
hmm
driven by the producers, whether or not people want to believe it or not. It's there's a lot of fabrication going on in the background, and situations are crafted in a way so that their favorites can succeed. But and that's perfectly fine. It's a form of entertainment, but um, like I said, you're going to have contraction. There will be fewer shows. There will be fewer shows. Shows are not going to be ordered into season. They won't just get a full run. They're going to go back to a traditional model of a pilot. Okay, we want to buy this show. We're going to give you the money to make a pilot. You can cast your actors, do all that. Everybody's contracts will be, based on make. and ta-da. So I suspect that everybody's going to go back to that model. There's evidence to support that, including things that are happening in streaming. One of the stories that was reported today, or actually a few stories reported today, seem to indicate that, which include Disney, believe it or not. And I've got a video coming out that expands on what was reported today, that Disney is going back to a traditional model with their streaming shows.
Okay.
Yeah, I've got a pretty in-depth video with a couple of extra insights that are attached to that tomorrow. But and there I'm undercutting it, but I don't care.
No, you're not undercutting. You're
promoting,
teasing. You're previewing. Yes,
there we go. Yeah, but regardless, and I need to stop looking at it that way. That's for sure. That's what Tom says. Tom says just do it anyway. But honestly, the writers got, like I said, they got what they wanted, but it's going to come at a cost, and I don't think they were prepared for it. I don't think they're prepared to lose a third.
Oh, wow.
I
mean, go ahead.
That's the conservative number, because I'm on the Front Porch Conservatives channel. So it's a conservative number. Honestly, I heard somebody say the other day, no, they're going to lose 2/3 of the writers. I'm like, that's not even possible. Oh, no, it is.
Oh, wow.
Well, writers' rooms have been growing steadily for a long time. And the only place you really need a big writers' room is for a live presentation show like Saturday Night Live or someplace like that. And everybody's like, well, it's a live show. Why do you need that? Well, because the guy that's there isn't talking extemporaneously all the time. He's not. Nobody can do what you just did as an intro. You just blah, 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 blah. I mean, maybe there's a handful of people that can do that. And you have, all the way back to Johnny Carson, writers' rooms, right? The guy was quick, and he certainly knew how to steer a conversation, used all the wonderful charisma tricks that are out there to do that. But at the same time, he had a room full of writers to help write the jokes. You had multiple producers that were calling to do pre-interviews and clear things with studios so that they could pursue that questioning with the guest. The guest was really, really well handled back then. They don't do that anymore. Yeah. And the jokes, you've seen a lot of monologue jokes fall by the wayside. And you've seen a lot of the up and coming newbies, the people that they pull out of YouTube, which I'd love to be pulled out of here and, do a studio show. I don't know if it'd be successful, but I know it'd be a lot of fun. But they pull people out of YouTube, like Lily Singh. There's an example for you. She was terrible because her brand of comedy only works in this small box. It doesn't work. It doesn't work on television. And she had an army of writers, and they couldn't make her funny.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Carson, because I think back to a story that was told after he retired. And a lot of people made a lot of the supposed rivalry between he and Letterman. And okay, there was they liked each other. They really liked each other. The story goes that Carson would slip one of Letterman's writers a joke. And, he'd pitch it to Letterman. Letterman be like, and I don't know if it was ever told to Letterman, hey, this came from Johnny. I don't know how that worked. But anyway, the story goes Carson would watch the show to see if the joke got slipped into the monologue. And sure enough, it happened. But Carson, Letterman, Tracy Ullman, great. Oh, yeah, when she had her show on Fox, she was amazing.
Yeah.
And had a wonderful group of writers to work with.
Yeah. Well, she also, again, she has, and a lot of these people do, is stage background.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So Ullman did like the perfect person, but she'd done everything. She'd done television, stage, film. She was perfect for a talk show. Well done.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Hang on, I want to put this one up here. Anytime Letterman would do the golf swing, that was supposed to. I'm not surprised. Wouldn't be surprised at all, man. But okay, so the Screen Actors are still out. Writers Guild is still in. Now, here's one of the questions that I've got. I mean, not that I am any kind of expert on how Hollywood works, but okay, there's got to be a certain amount of writing. You've got to put it into some form of script. The actors have got to go in front of a camera and make it. And then you've got to do the editing and the marketing and the everything else. Okay, the writers have been out for 3 months. The actors are still out, and Lord knows when they're going to settle it. How big of a lag are we talking about? Because normally September, early October, you got the new seasons of your shows. How big of a lag? I mean, if the average person were sitting down in front of their TV and they're going through their TV guide. Yeah, I'm dating myself, ladies and gentlemen, so just shoot me. You're going through your TV guide and you're trying to find your favorite show, and now the strike's going on. How big of a lag are we talking about before the average viewer of either television or film notices, hey, I haven't seen anything new in a while?
What if I gave you the answer in a way that's very sarcastic and mean and say, I don't
I would
think
expect no
anybody's
less.
I don't think anybody's going to notice or care. And truly, we've already been without content that's new for a while. We just didn't know it. There is sufficient backlog for most of the studios to get through the bulk of 2024 if they have to. The problem is the quality is so diminished of that material, things that have been in a box for a while. And there's a reason stuff gets put in a box. There's a reason stuff gets shelved. But some of that could be pulled out if they absolutely needed it. They have the equivalent of like a bunch of Hallmark movies they could dump out there in the world. They've got stuff. So rainy day stuff is what it is. Talking to somebody like Paul Chatto, you get kind of a feel for what that would be. And he's like, well, they have things. It's just not going to be good things. And everybody had already pivoted to reality television. There had already been a massive pivot to that. Show production's already underway for shows that can go. And here's what people misunderstand. In writing and in acting, you can have something called a network deal. Okay. Especially for the live produced shows. So if you had a network deal, like let's say Bill Maher, maybe he probably doesn't. No, he does. He has a network deal with HBO. You have obviously, any of the late night shows now, Fallon and all them, they have a network deal. Network deals don't fall into what's happening with the struck things, which is why all the late night guys, even though they've been actors before, are allowed to come back and do their shows. Like Jimmy Fallon's an actor. I mean, and Colbert has been an actor and stuff. And so they all probably have their SAG cards. So, but because they have a network deal, which is not, involved in these strikes, that's where you end up. But getting back to your original question and beyond the nuance, tangent I just went on, you're probably, and I'm going to stick to this, you probably won't see anything new until well after the first of the year, because I don't think you're going to see productions.
Wow.
Well, outside of, let's say, some of the Wolf production stuff that's been happening, because those actors have network deals for like what is it called? Police Chicago, 911 or something, whatever those shows are. But anyway, the procedurals, a lot of those are network deal shows. So a lot of those actors can go back to work. Some of them aren't because they're standing tall with the actors or anything, but the writers at least can get that written. So, and acting doesn't take all that much. You can get a show put together for a week in 3 to 5 days if you hustle. If you take the first cut of everything and all of that, they're going to have to spin up. They're going to have to do table reads. They're going to have to make sure things work on the ground. A lot of times you can do an episode like a Monday table read. You can walk through everything. Then you go through scene blocking and all of that. You could probably turn out an episode every week for a weekly show. Okay. So it's quite possible if they can get 3 weeks of production in, they can start airing things.
Okay.
The problem is you also have breaks that are calculated into shows, like where we give a break to the actors and the cast and everything else. But and again, a lot of this is just from my knowledge from way back. I'm not certain that any of these are done this way anymore. I wouldn't know, because we're working in different situations with volume stages and things like that. So I'd have to ask around. But to be fair, that's just the way things were put together. If you look at it from, they actually start production sometime in January, maybe. I don't think you'd see anything till April.
Holy cow.
It might be sooner than that, might be March, but it's going to take a while to spin this all up. And then you have scheduling. See, this is the other thing. Like a lot of these shows, especially if they're location shows, now you have to go out and you have to do location shoots. You have to get permits to shoot. You have to do all these other things. You have to you have to schedule every camera, every lighting company, every caterer. All these other entities that are part of this very intricate, puzzle. This colony of ants has all these supporting ants that actually make things go. So, I mean, I imagine they could probably get that up and running. But let me put it this way. The Screen Actors Guild started negotiating on Monday, and they took Tuesday off. And then they were back at it today. Decent chance they'll take tomorrow off. I don't know. We'll have to see where they actually land. And again, I could be entirely wrong. They could be back in production, in November. I doubt. Maybe December. But I still think you're going to have a lag time of two months at minimum, if not longer. I just, yeah, it takes forever. If film production's even more ridiculous, I mean, it's just, especially if you start in, pre-production work and development, which is what that is now. If you start in development, things can be in development hell for 3 years, before it even gets out into the world. They pay people a lot of money in development. So, why not keep developing something? No, but you get that. You've got actual pre-production when things start to move forward, and you've got casting going and all that other stuff. You've got there's just miles of things that happen in the background. Now, all of them are overly convoluted. One of my friends who owns a lighting company, he's like, I'll get a call for a job that's 6 months out, just so they lock down my schedule.
Wow.
Yeah, and they'll tell me what they think they need, and I always bring 10% more of whatever it is that they think.
Wise decision, because you just never, with that sort of thing, you just never know. Because some director or assistant director or whatever gets a wild hair. It's like, I need more of this. Okay, I've already got it. Well, how'd you know you needed it? Because I knew you're going to ask for it.
Yeah, and but I mean, he's been doing it a long time. I mean, he's going 20 years on it now. But I just feel like, I like I said, I feel like if you just to answer that question more simply, I think a minimum 2 months from the time they get everything
spun back up.
And I still don't, and that still puts us into January. So yeah, I mean we're almost midway through October, right? So
yeah,
nobody's working Christmas break. Everybody's going to take a nap in the middle of November. And nobody's going to negotiate during those periods of time. The studios are perfectly content here, and that's the biggest takeaway I have from anybody I've talked to. The studios are perfectly content to wait this out, and the actors have some demands that are ridiculous. They're going to have to concede,
such as
the biggest one being how residuals are paid for streaming and things like that, because that will require a certain level of transparency. And I've said this before in other places, and I'll say it again. The studios can't afford for that level of transparency. Disney cannot afford to have the actual number of viewers out there in the world. That's why they were so gung-ho in telling you that Ahsoka had 14 million people watch the first episode. Bologna sausage. And there's no way. First of all, that would be huge. It would be one of the bigger performers that they ever had. Samba TV came out with what I would consider a reasonable number, although overly exaggerated. By the time you combine that with what the Nielsen figures are 3 weeks later, you get a more realistic expectation of how the show performed. And boy, did it not perform to 14 million. I mean, the Nielsen numbers really revealed just how badly Disney fudged their numbers.
How bad was it?
It was pretty bad. I mean, you're looking at 25-30% of a fudge. Yeah, it's not, it wasn't 14 million. But here in their defense, I'm going to use something that any attorney worth their salt would say. Well, that's not how we count views. So a view could be, we don't know. So a view could be somebody watching something, right, and hitting pause, and then going off to do something and coming back and starting it over again. Well, is that another view? Also, are you making an assumption that the average household is this number of people and all of them are sitting at the TV? So maybe that's 4 views. There's a lot of things. So how do you count views? Even on YouTube, where we are now, what's a view? How many seconds do you have to watch for it to be counted as a view? I know they know. I know they know what the click-through rate is. I know they know all of those things. But what's a view? It's the same thing can be said for the social media platform formerly known as Twitter, now X. What's an impression? The fact that I scrolled by it, is that an impression? So there's all of these factors in play, and so they can pretty much claim whatever they want. There's nobody that can prove them otherwise. Nielsen is just a guess based off of a percentage of households, which everybody has accepted as good forever until we got into streaming. And so when it gets back to the screen actors and they want to be their pay based, as I get that correct there, they want their pay based on the views in the households. Well, who's going to be able to bear that out? I mean, how many people actually watched this? Well, if we give you that level of transparency, our investors are going to flip out because nobody watched this stuff. For example, Samba TV today dropped their numbers.
Okay.
For Ahsoka, for the very last episode, the finale, over 6 days.
Okay.
Just right around 768,000 households.
That's it?
Now, remember, 14 million people
watched the first episode,
according to Disney.
Which, by the way, statistically, if memory serves me right, when MASH finished in 1982 or 83, the series finale on a show that had ran for 11 years got, I want to say 11 million, if memory's right, 11 million viewers or something extraordinarily high.
Oh, it was at the time, it was the largest television audience for a program. Yeah, I was there. I was watching it with you.
I remember watching it. And they're trying to tell me that I'm going to be harsh with this, but there's harsh but diplomatic, a cheaply, poorly made Ahsoka first episode did better than MASH at the end of its run of 11 years? You've got to be kidding me.
You were far too kind. I'm going to say this: as a percentage of the population, MASH reached more people in this country. In even at 14 million. Okay, even at 14 million, if we take their numbers as a percentage,
yeah,
what percentage of the American population actually tuned in to watch Ahsoka? Because our population is much bigger than it was in 1982.
Yeah, 330 million, if I remember correctly, the last number I heard.
Yeah. And I don't know what the 1982 numbers are, but I know it wasn't anywhere close to that. And I also know that they're claiming 14 million views globally, not here in the States.
Oh, jeez.
So again, another reason why they absolutely don't want these numbers to get out in the public. So the actors are asking for something that they can't give.
And
the writers were willing to concede that point, and they did to a certain extent. The actors are suggesting that Disney and others be forced to use the baloney sausage of Parrot Analytics.
Or what is Parrot Analytics?
Parrot Analytics is I'm going to call them what they are, and then I'll tell you what they say they are. They're a marketing company.
Okay.
That's what they actually are. What they say they are is they employ analytics to break down the viewership interest in a particular program. Okay. And they utilize their metrics to pre-predict the interest level in things before they're even made. They also tell people what the viewership interest was in a show that was made or was recently viewed or was recently released. And they do this for everything. The problem is they're calculating something that is snake oil. It's a demand metric. That's what they've created. They created a demand metric that's pretty easy to game. All you have to do is get an army of bots to like something on Facebook or on Twitter or on any of the things that they track in social media, and that automatically can figure into their data. Well, I just need an army of bots. I'm going to make this amazing show. I'm pitching it. I pitch it to everybody. I get somebody to buy it on it, and then I go hire an army of bots to say, "Oh, I'm so looking forward to this. This is going to be incredible." A million blog posts, whatever, because they track all that stuff, and then they'll track whether they're not tracking whether somebody likes it. No, just that they are talking about it. So when you make a meme that makes fun of Ahsoka, that's a demand metric. The audience is interested because they're mocking the show.
Oh my God.
No. I can go on and on, but I mean, I've done several, I think 3 videos on Parrot Analytics, and I beat them to pieces so hard that if you've ever heard of Upper Echelon Gaming.
Yeah, I've heard of it.
One of the producers for them contacted me while I was at the Vegas meetup, and I didn't realize it because I was not checking social media because of the Vegas meetup. Contacted me to get information and background and anything that I had on it because Upper Echelon wanted to make a video on Parrot Analytics. Well, because I wasn't Johnny on the spot with the information, Upper Echelon went ahead and made the video based on the same information that I found on the internet and just tore them apart as well. They are a marketing company.
Oh, jeez.
They work on manipulating perception, and I'm telling you right now, it doesn't work. None of this has ever worked. They just somebody came up with a mousetrap that nobody had ever tried to sell before in that way, and that's all tech is. I mean, I've as somebody who worked in tech way back when, 20 some years ago now, I can tell you that anytime tech is involved in something, it's remaking the same thing, but they're taking a 25 to 30% cut, sometimes more, of whatever business it is that they're getting into. That's what it is. That's what streaming is. Streaming is, we're going to take a cut. Who's benefiting from streaming right now? Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, because they're taking a cut for the distribution. It's like, wait a minute, why are we paying for this? And it's never beneficial for the end user. It makes everything more expensive. Used to get free television. Then we come up with tech. The tech was satellite and cable. Ooh, I get more television. But who's taking a cut? The middleman. So now tech is just the new middleman. I'm sorry. I step back from big pictures all the time and look at them and say, wow, this is a huge scam. Streaming's a huge scam. They've really messed up all of their modeling, and they've done it real easy. But to get back to the actors, they're asking for something I don't think they're going to get. You cannot get the transparency that they want. Even with limited transparency, it'll get out in the public, and then the investors are going to freak out, and for a good reason. I'm sorry. This is the least profitable model for any of these entities, and Tom and I talk about this all the time. Tom from Midnight's Edge, and we've been talking about this for 3.5 years now. Tom and I. You are literally removing 5 other ways of making money with your content, with streaming. You cut it all out. You got rid of a release cycle where you could monetize the same material at least 5 times. And I've gone on record saying I think it's 6 or 7.
Oh, wow.
Because I mean, look at what re-releases now, which are done in a limited fashion now, but look at what re-releases for films are doing, right? I mean, Warner Brothers wanted to cash in so bad that they added in a couple of scenes into the Barbie movie and re-released it on IMAX. So they got another grab of the public's dime. But you've eliminated initial pay-per-view sales through cable and satellite. Okay, that's after you're done with your theatrical window, which they held open longer, right? The theaters had a bigger bite of the apple. Everybody was making more money. Then it would go to a pay-per-view. Then it would roll out to digital, right? They kind of inserted digital between there and cable and satellite. Cable and satellite distribution would then get it in their premium channels. So you'd get it on HBO, Showtime, Max, all of that. Then you could go out from there to Netflix. Netflix would get their thing. You'd get a bite of that apple. Then you would move into physical media. So back then you had DVD, Blu-ray, all that. So there's another bite of the apple. And then you would do release that was broadly available for people to pick up. And then you would sell it. See, I'm just keep going. And then you'll sell it to like the regular cable channels like TBS, TNT, WGN, all of that. And then it would go out to broadcast television linearly. And so you would have a Star Wars night on CBS.
Mm-hmm.
So how many different steps along the way did you just eliminate?
And in the end, okay, so for the normies like me, what in the world made streaming so damned appealing to Hollywood that they basically lost all? I mean, it's like, I don't want to put this. It's like they put an addictive substance in front of somebody with addictive tendencies and said, "Here, you'll like this." Not realize the addictive person doesn't realize, "Oh crap, I've now liked this. I'm all in." And even though common sense, reality, my own self-interest, my own everything else should otherwise tell me not to keep doing this, I'm still doing it anyway. So pardon my French, what the hell made Hollywood abandon all sense of common sense, reason, and monetary desire to get rich and do this kind of stupid?
Content control.
Okay, define that.
Okay, so this was sold to them as an opportunity to eliminate or drastically reduce piracy.
Okay.
To create their own walled garden where the only place to get this content was from this streaming service.
Oh.
So that they would lock down an audience. The only place you're going to see Star Wars is on Disney Plus. Okay. And maybe that's true, but it's a less profitable model because originally think of how they've already evolved. And I actually have a video coming out on this as well. But think of how they've already evolved. Actually, it came out today. They've already gone into ad tier service now. So we're returning to a network model.
Oh my God.
Okay, why? Because there's no money in it. You walled off the garden. Every studio walled off their garden. So it's just your catalog. And people get bored of your catalog. You know, your old stuff isn't as good as you think it is. And it's not available for free with commercials on, you know, regular cable television and satellite and linear television distribution over the air. So well done. I predicted this. I one of the first couple of weeks I was on YouTube, I predicted this was going to happen. This is going to be a disaster because you're creating artificial scarcity. The audience isn't interested in most of your content. Nobody is going to take the bait on a long-term plan because you got burned years ago by cell phones. So you have to do this month to month.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, that they're going to walk away at any time. Your churn rate is going to go bananas once you have, you know, several flop films, which guess what? Disney and Warner just had a series of flop films. Your profitability's out the window. You're spending the same amount of money, if not mountains more, to produce content just for your streaming system, because that's what it is. And Tom is penned the correct name here, and it probably was Tom and Andre together. Streaming is just a format. You just like VHS, just like DVD, just like Blu-ray, just like your cassette tape, just like your album, just like your reel-to-reel. It's a format. So now we have a format war that nobody won. Nobody won.
And they're sunk so far into it, they cannot get themselves out of this.
They would have to admit, oopsie. Do you know what you don't do in Hollywood?
You never admit oopsie.
No, you can't do it. And so all of these were inevitable conclusions. They were easy to see coming a mile away. But the appeal of the tech, well, the internet's great. Everybody has the internet. Everybody's going to have the internet. They're gonna have instant access to everything that they want, and we're gonna make sure they have everything that we have. Okay, and then what? Because you're foregoing however many things I listed off of all the different bites of the apple that you get for the same entertainment. You go into a theatrical release, your movie's garbage. You don't get the kind of pull there. You spent $250 million on the production itself alone. You spent $140 to $180 million on the advertising for that said product. So now you're, I don't know, $500,000 in if you're being nice, just to break even. And you have to share those receipts with the theatrical exhibitioner. And so, okay, half that's gone. You have taxes in there. You have all kinds of other things that get pulled out. Gross box office receipts are not a calculable thing that you should rely on, because you're not taking into account everything that's associated with the tax and everything else that's going into that film. Then let's say you pull half of what the total gross is, which is not exactly right, but would benefit of the doubt, conservative approach, you where are you at? Where are you going to distribute that again? Well, you're not sending it to another competitor's cable network, are you? No, you got to pull it in-house to your own streaming service to try to retain the subscribers that you have, to fend off churn. Well, you spent $250 million on it. You've only netted maybe $100 million of that back. I mean, look at what the Flash cost. The Flash was well into, $350 million in production costs. They spent estimably $180 million easily on that in advertising. And I don't even think they globaled out at 227. I think that's even too high. I think it didn't even global out that high, but maybe. And you only got half of that. So you got $110 million on, $500 million out the door. You're okay, it's probably not that much. Probably $350 million underwater on that film still.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Same thing with Indiana Jones Dial of Destiny. Same thing with most of these films right now. It's just, and you and I talked about this the last time you were here, is that, I remember specifically saying, they've got all the money, they've got all the writers, they've got all the tech, they've got everything else. Why can't they produce a product that makes money? And you said, interestingly and ironically enough, the fact that they have all the advantages is their disadvantage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's amazing to me.
Anytime you force somebody into a budget, and it's a skinny one, you're going to get the best possible results.
Yeah, because they have to get creative at that point.
Yeah, you have to be creative in a lot of ways. You got to be creative. You have to be like, well, we can't afford to spend this on CGI. We have to do it practically. We can't afford for this movie to be that long. We don't have the budget for it. So when you give a spoiled child, a container, a gallon of ice cream, half gallon of ice cream, are you expecting to get any of that ice cream back? No, they're going to eat the entire gallon. But and again, I mean, we the other part of the problem is that they were given directives to incorporate all of this ideology into their entertainment. And it wasn't just the studios that were doing it. It wasn't just the financiers that were doing it. It was the Academy of Motion Pictures that is doing it. So everybody wants you to make movies in a particular way, doing a particular ideology. You're kind of hamstrung. You can have all those advantages, but you're hamstrung. And that's all you got. It's very interesting. The Creator just came out, and it didn't perform very well, which is very disappointing. A lot of that probably is because they didn't really put a lot of effort behind it as far as advertising it. There also wasn't a lot of shows. It released in a time when you didn't have the opportunity to promote it. I'll give it some of that. But the budget on that was $85 million. And it looked every bit as good as any other blockbuster you've seen this year.
Yeah, you'd mentioned some films, and I was doing some research. You just absolutely fell in love with Equalizer 3, Gran Turismo. It
was great, films,
and lower budgets, and probably a lot less Hollywood nonsensical overhead.
But the problem is, they didn't have the support in the marketing area. Ads in print probably didn't, AMP probably didn't, or Prince and As, however you want to say it, probably didn't come in where they needed to get a film like that was an original. Because, I mean, to the extent that The Equalizer could be original, it's the only franchise that Denzel Washington's ever done. He's never done a repeat film other than Equalizer 2.
That's true.
And this third film wraps up his franchise rather neatly, by the way. Cinematically, it's probably the most beautiful movie I've seen this year. And I've seen a lot of movies. Every single shot in that is planned out. The budget wasn't exorbitant. They shot it in a foreign country. It's all a location shot. You didn't have a volume stage. Practical effects, practical sets. But every element of storytelling was utilized there, from the cinematography to the writing, to the nonverbal abilities of the actors involved. So when I compare that film to Ahsoka, specifically because Ahsoka is something that's fresh in everybody's mind, the empty dialogue that's there in that show was incredibly boring, and only done because it needed to fill time. And because, well, the writers aren't very good anymore. In a film like Equalizer 3, the silence is still storytelling. Because, and I've said this before, and I don't get to say it very often, in this particular case, the city, the surrounding area, became a character in the film. Because you came to love the setting. You came to love the people in the setting. All these background actors, extras, you call them, and things like that, were extraordinary. Probably some of them were just people in the town that they shot it in, and it was gorgeous. And without, I don't know that there's a lot of films shot like that anymore. But anyway, back to the conversation around the budget. You've now made it almost impossible, because of these streaming services, to make profitable films. You have to earn $1 billion in the cinema if you're spending $250 million on the film at production level. And now come to find out, as we get more and more information from the UK, which is where a lot of these Disney things and DC things as well are being shot, right? Because it's just cheaper over there. And they have world-class, I'm going to say it this, world-class professionals working there. They're extraordinary in every element of film and television production. But we're now getting the actual numbers for some of these films, including Star Wars. You know, the production budget for Star Wars, The Force Awakens, was revised up. It had to be, because every year, in order to collect tax credits on a film in the UK, you have to report to Companies House. And so all the budgets are now being revealed. So if you want to know where those numbers are coming from, and why WDW Pro, Midnight's Edge, and Valiant Renegade all sound brilliant, it's because they know where to go get the numbers. And those numbers are going up. The numbers around Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the only reason that we knew that the budget was in the 360s, was the eventual budget was in the 360s, was because of that. The only and it could be more. The only reason that we know that you know, some of these films that were assumed to be giantly profitable, maybe didn't make nearly as much profit as we thought. Some of these $1 billion films didn't make all that much money. It's terrifying. And you know, they can hide it because it's a reported production budget. That's where they start. Great. What did you actually spend? Way more than that. In the case of those particular productions, way more than that.
Jeez.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Well, folks, if you are just joining us, my name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. This is the always informative, ever wise, and terribly funny Culture Casino. We are hanging out talking about all things Hollywood and business matters related to Hollywood, which most people don't talk about. But this gentleman is probably one of the best out there on social media as far as taking you behind the curtain and seeing what's going on, which is why I wanted to have him back on tonight, among other reasons. I mean, he's just a joy to talk to. If you're not subscribed to his channel, please do so. If you're not subscribed to mine, Wouldn't hurt my feelings if you did. So, help a brother out.
You were
Yeah,
criminally undersubbed, my friend.
oh,
So,
bless your heart. That's
yeah.
extraordinarily nice of you to
Well,
say.
no.
But let's switch gears and talk about everybody's favorite problem child. Well, or let me rephrase that. Let's talk about everybody's best example of how not to do things in the entertainment industry, Disney.
Yes.
Oh, mother of God. I feel like a mosquito in a nudist colony. Where do you start first? It's like this company has got so many problems. I mean, Walt Disney is not just spinning in his grave, he's going around like the rooster on a weather top on top of a barn. I mean, oh my God. I mean, I was
Mm.
taking a look at some of the things that you've been talking about,
Oh.
and one of them I want to get into because this to me is fascinating because, the way this guy is coming in almost reminds me of Clint Eastwood in Pale Rider. He just kind of rolls into town and scares the living dog crap right out of everybody. I think you know where I'm going with this.
Oh, I do.
Nelson Peltz. All right,
Yes.
for viewers right now who are watching this live stream and they're like, "Well, who the heck is Nelson Peltz and why should I care?" Lay this guy out for everybody. Then I got some questions I want to ask about Nelson.
Nelson Peltz is probably one of the smartest businessmen out there. I mean, there are a handful of guys that can come in and run a fund and put a bunch of assets under management. And he's got, with his entity, over $8 billion under his management. And
Now, is this an investment house? I mean,
yes, yeah. He operates something called Trian Management Group.
Okay.
And you can find him, Trian Partners, Trian. And at least I think so. I could be spelling that wrong. But
okay.
Anyway, regardless, he's a brilliant man. If you listen to him speak, he is the one that scared Procter and Gamble not that many years ago, trying to get a board seat. He went after DuPont. Guy doesn't mess around. He is an activist investor in the truest sense, not in the political sense.
Okay, define activist for those who are watching.
Okay, so and believe it or not, probably the best description was done today or maybe a couple days ago by Valiant Renegade, and I'll break down. I'll do it the same way he said it because it's very clear. 99.9% of investors are passive investors, right?
Okay.
So they invest in a mutual fund. They have a 401k, Roth IRA. They have some kind of a savings plan. They have a stock guy that manages their investments. Maybe they're working with a JP Morgan guy, investor, advisor, somebody. That's passive. When it comes to major investors and people who are informed and want to be involved, those are active investors, activist investors. So that's what he is. And a lot, you'll find hedge fund operators, all of these people that work with these management groups. He's a management guy. He's managing people's funds, and he's taking those $8 billion in assets and he's putting them in things. And in this case, he put $2.5 billion, maybe more. We're estimating might be at $3 billion now of those assets into Disney. And that scares Iger.
Why?
Well, okay, so that puts him as far as individual shareholders, it puts him somewhere in chair 5 or 6, competing with the big boys. Like the number one right now, as far as the last filing that I'm aware of, was Vanguard. They switched place with BlackRock. Then you have State Street. Then you have, and I think, I'm not sure who was in 4th place, but I'm pretty sure he may have stepped into 5th place. He's also pals with some very dangerous people, one of which Disney kicked to the curb. His name was Ike Perlmutter. He used to, he's the guy that arranged for Marvel to get sold to Disney in the first place.
I remember that name. Yes.
So you have him in his $2 billion pockets that might and who's pretty irritated.
Oh, he's pissed. Ike Perlmutter is pissed. Let's just call it what it is.
I was cleaning it up, but yes, he's very angry. And then you have guys that they're friends with.
Okay.
And are also activist investors. Like, you might have heard the name Peter Thiel. He's pals with Elon Musk. You may have heard of Larry Ellison, the guy that does Oracle. right?
Yeah.
And you might have heard of his kid, and I can't remember his first name, but he's the kid that started Skydance. Do you think Skydance, the owner of Skydance, might not be interested in inconveniencing Disney a little bit?
Just a little bit. Yeah. Yeah.
So, well, they might not be all chummy. They're all smart people, and if they work together with their investment funds and their personal funds and any other assets they can get, and they make an appeal to stockholders, which last time Peltz made a pretty appealing appeal to stockholders. This is we're not being run properly. This is going badly. We're not getting shareholder value here. They're not operating the company in good faith to do their fiduciary duty to serve you and guarantee you the largest profits. They're putting a lot of other things in front of that, like politics and all of these other elements that are nonsensical. They're not doing the best for you. And a lot of the stockholders looked at that and said, you know what? You might be right. Now, the board recommends against listening to Peltz, but these people could allow their voting shares. They could share them. They could via a proxy.
Yeah, you've mentioned that term and I've got a little bit of investment knowledge. I mean, I used to work in retail banking and I used to have an investment licensure, et cetera. But when you say proxy fight, let me spell this out and you tell me if I'm wrong. Are you saying that guys like Peltz, Ellison, Teal, all these cats could possibly get together, pool some money, buy a crap pile of stock, and get control of the board?
Yeah. So, okay, exactly. And they also will make appeal to regular stockholders like me, right? Okay. They're going to look at somebody like me and say, we want you to vote with us. Okay. You can have my shares to vote as proxy for your slate or for your purposes, whether it's to get 1, 2, or 3 seats, which is what Peltz is asking for, or else he's going to go for the jugular. That's why he scares Disney, because he can ask for 2 or 3 seats. He wants to be on one of them. He wants his kid to be in one of them badly. And he could get another one. Well, right now, everybody on that board was handpicked by Iger. And people go, how do you handpick a board member? Well, you are friends with all these investment people that are there in the first place. You talk to Fink over at BlackRock. You have him on speed dial. You can call him and say, hey, I really like this guy. If you're considering him for a board seat, he and I work well together. Well, that's how you ended up with the forced labor aficionado that came over from Nike. So that's how you ended up with that guy on the board. Right. And so at the same time, all of these things happened. And so Iger was able to assemble a board that was friendly to him, which is how he ended up with an extension when Peltz said you have to have a succession plan. Well, Iger did. His succession plan was him. So he's still in the job. He's extended his contract. And he's exhausted now, and for very good reason. But we'll get back into that in a moment. But what's actually going to happen is Iger would be foolish not to give concessions to Peltz at this point because Iger lied to Peltz. He said, we're going to pursue profit over everything else. We're going to have a dividend at the end of the year. Do you know what would be irresponsible and not fulfilling a fiduciary duty as a CEO of the company?
To not have a dividend.
Issuing a dividend this end of the year, which he promised would be done. He can't. What is he going to give everybody? 0.2 of a cent? No, per share. It might still be too much. Disney's in such bad shape, and they have to fully finish and execute on the deal to acquire Hulu.
Let's get into that for a second, because when you and I last talked, when you and I last talked, and if I'm not restating this correctly, feel free to fill in the gaps.
Sure.
Disney was in a position where they had to come up with roughly $9 billion, was it, to complete their portion of the purchase of Hulu. The problem for old Disney is they're kind of like, how do I want to put this? On paper, well, let me rephrase this. To look at the Magic Kingdom, the castle looks beautiful. Yeah. Start looking down at the foundations and you realize, God, this thing's termite eaten and rotten out the bottom. This thing ain't going to stand much longer because it's got nothing to stand on. Translation, If you strip down all their financials and you run all the income streams they've got, they're dead broke. They're like the Lannisters at the end of Game of Thrones. They're living on the reputation of the gold mines, and they ain't no gold in the mines anymore.
No.
Are they still in this position? Where is Disney at with this Hulu thing? And here's my question related to that. Peltz knows the bad shape they're in. Why do I mean, and I'm just theorizing here. This is spitballing, and I want your opinion of this. Could Peltz basically go to Iger and go, you need a lot of money. You ain't got it. I want board seats. Let's cut a deal.
Well, I think he's already done it. I think if you don't think these guys have talked on the phone before, I guarantee you they have. Man, there's a lot of things in business you're not allowed to do at this level, but people still do it anyway. I'm just telling you. I mean,
no, it's true. It's absolutely true.
So I'm going to tell you that I look at what's happening, and I think that it would be very foolish if Iger did not give him what he wants, because otherwise Iger's out anyway. If you get a full slate, if they're able to get a slate that Peltz likes, ball game over for Iger, because the amount of transparency that Peltz was looking for was to see what was going on behind the scenes. You actually have several lawsuits in place right now. One of them very specifically is seeking documents and records to get some transparency into what their business practices are with the production of all of their film and television and streaming and everything. They were trying to get access to that. And this is somebody who's a pretty heavy duty shareholder themselves. It's not going to be hard to find disgruntled shareholders right now. Sure. So if you're Iger, you've got to be looking at, yes, let's do that. But I think it's even bigger. When they made the original estimation, Comcast made the estimation for what the value of Hulu was. It was many years ago. It's worth far more than what they did at that time. I mean, the value is only going to grow. So when they made the deal, what the put offer would be, it was supposed to be adjusted from the number that was agreed upon at the time, which was $27 billion.
Okay.
So it's worth well more than that. So coming up with $9 billion wasn't going to be a problem. We've been very conservative, a lot of us, saying that, well, maybe it's worth $30 billion now. Let's put more than that. Comcast came back with it's worth $70 billion.
Okay, let's just assume for a moment Comcast is right. But let's just assume for a second. Okay. On $70 billion, what's Disney's kitty that they got to put in?
Well, okay, so if it's worth $70 billion and Disney currently owns 2/3, well, what's 1/3 of $70 billion? It's like, yeah, it's a lot of money. So it's not worth $70 billion. But okay. That's again, just like any negotiation. Ask the Screen Actors Guild and the WGA, and you're gonna ask for the moon. But no, it's not worth $70 billion. And first of all, that's actually a number that's remarkably similar to what they paid for Fox. There's no way Hulu is worth the entire value of Fox. The other argument that could be made is the moment that Hulu becomes a full-on Disney property, what compels Comcast to continue to license their content on Hulu to Disney? They had nothing. Nothing compels them to do that. Nobody else needs to rent or sell their stuff to Disney. Disney would just be Disney again. And so why did you get Hulu in the first place? You just have a bigger Disney Plus. Now we can run our R-rated movies. I mean, what is it? So there's a lot to it. And of course, the licensing agreements will have eventual expiration dates, and there's always clauses in those contracts to force negotiation. But Comcast can stall forever on that. They were treating Comcast so poorly that Comcast stopped paying their percentage share of maintenance and operation costs for Hulu a few months ago, pending this deal anyway.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and Comcast, look, Roberts hates Iger. I mean, that's not new. I mean, it's not just because of the Fox deal. I mean, they've not liked each other for a long time.
Why do I get the feeling a lot of people in Hollywood hate Iger at this point for one reason or another? Or am I wrong about that?
Everybody loved Weinstein.
Yeah, and everybody didn't know what Weinstein was doing either, or did they?
How about this? Everybody loved on Weinstein. Nobody loved Weinstein.
Oh,
So
it's
yeah,
one of those deals.
I look. First of all, Uncle Bob has done a lot in life. He went from being a weatherman to being a purchase. Oh my gosh, no! Oh, I saw this news today. There is no chance in Hades that happens. They don't have the money. Look at how much Microsoft is willing to sacrifice for, a very compromised, Blizzard, Activision product.
Sure.
Disney does not have the money to acquire EA. And that's a sinking ship. Outside of their sports titles, EA hasn't made good things in a long time. It doesn't matter. Anyway, moving on from that. But back to it. So let's give everybody a benefit of the doubt and say Hulu's worth $10 billion. Getting back to that.
Okay. All right.
Sorry, I can go off on tangents very easily.
No, dude. I told you the last time. I look at it like man opens up a gate, lets a really good racehorse see a wide open field, turning loose.
That's fine. $10 billion. So $10 billion. Disney doesn't have it. They got to figure out a way to get it. One of the magical mysteries is how you can make cash on hand look like it's actual money when it's not, because it's not cash on. You don't have that cash and cash equivalents. That's why they say it that way. Disney had a terrible quarter. Ad revenues are going to be down on linear television. Believe it or not, linear television, broadcast television, all of that stuff, still a giant moneymaker for Disney. ESPN's been losing subscribers left and right. That was what the whole Charter Spectrum deal was all about, was that you're charging $9 to everybody that's on Charter cable for ESPN, and not all of them have ESPN even on the tier. That's not new information. It's been out there for a long, long time. There are fewer people available to pay these exorbitant fees, so they got concessions from Disney, which I'm not sure didn't help Disney out, because you're going to get a lot of artificial. Sorry, I got a mosquito in here.
Right.
A lot of artificial. There it is. I got him. A lot of artificial subscribers that don't actually exist from that Charter Spectrum deal. And so, with that being said, Disney got some artificial boost in the subscriber numbers, which will be reflected in the quarter, which will make that look slightly better. But they're not going to get any more revenue. It's going to actually drop their average revenue per user. So what was the point? Because you're giving that away for a wholesale price, or less. It's just like the Verizon deal that Disney's had. It's just like this. You're not making money on these customers. It's dumb. But moving on. So they don't have the money to do it with. They're going to have to borrow it. They're going to have to go into their stocks. They're going to have to raid their stock treasury. They're going to have to do something to get this money. They're going to have to beg, borrow, and steal. Maybe they'll sell something to Hearst again. Maybe they're still in the ESPN deal, still with Hearst, so they still have some contact with them. I don't know. I just don't know how they're going to go about doing it. And they no matter what, they have to do it, and they don't have the money. And as you pointed out, they've collapsed all of their other revenue streams. They've allowed for those to crumble and fade away. There was no pre-planning. That's why they pushed so hard into streaming. They're going to probably do the same thing that Warner Brothers is forcing right now with linear carriers, where if you look at what Warner just did, they added live news in CNN, and they are adding live sports, or just did. Well, actually, technically tomorrow. So technically, you'll have Warner Sports, which is going to be under the moniker of Bleacher Report, which was a dead entity, and they're going to carry all the Turner stuff. So anything that's a Turner product inside the NBA, all that stuff, that's going to be available on there. That's going to be available for 3 months for free. And then sometime around the end of February, the people that are getting whatever this product is now, Max, will have to pay $10 a month if they want that quote unquote sports tier.
Okay.
So, yeah. But anyway, so Disney will probably have to lean into that. They'll be forced to, because ESPN subscribers are dropping. The carriers aren't happy about carrying it. Disney's on the fence as far as gaining or losing subscribers this quarter would be my guess. And while their ad tier product is being sold, it's being sold with all of their other advertising on their linear networks and everything else. Most people don't understand that Disney's ad department is immense, but they cobble together everything for an all-in-one shop. So if you want to advertise here, you're going to have to buy some ads over here. It's like the mafia. If you want to do business over here, you can only buy your red paint from this distributor.
Yeah, it's funny you use the word mob. I've done some videos recently on the trials that are going on of the former president and the charges of racketeering, and I had to literally go look up the definition of racketeering, and it's a very simple definition. We come in, we create a problem, and then we provide you with the solution to said problem.
Yeah.
Hence, that's racketeering. Well, that's more or less Disney in this case. We're going to create your problem, and then we're going to provide you with a solution to it. And the problem is, we're so big, you've got no choice other than to take the solution, or you go under. The problem with Disney now is, and this is a question I kind of want to get to because it still boggles my mind when I think about it. Because when you hear about Disney buying something over the years, I mean, back in the 90s, they bought ABC, they bought ESPN, they bought Fox, they bought all these Pixar, they bought all these studios. And it's gotten to the point that, you've heard the expression too big to fail. Well, they've gotten so big, they just might fail for any number of different reasons. So I guess here's my question. How the hell did Disney get around the monopoly laws to get this ginormous?
Well, some of those things got relaxed a lot during the Clinton administration. The Bushes certainly were more business oriented, superficially, at least for appearance's sake. So they put commissioners in positions that were not too keen on breaking up monopolies, as they, obviously the Reagan era, there was a lot more desire to do that. Even Carter, I guess, was interested in, keeping that in check for business sake. Of course, more because he just collapsed the economy, but it is what it is, which is currently happening now. I wonder why. Anyway, getting back to non-political side of the conversation. It's been very lax. None of these monopolies should exist. Entertainment studios have become monopolies. They've acquired their competitors. They've prevented a rise in competition. I mean, outside of A24 as a middling studio, how many others have come to rise to power? Well, the only way Blumhouse is surviving is because they've ponied up and partnered with Comcast, Universal. There's just not a lot of independents out there anymore. And you have some, but they're selling out anything that they own to these bigger entities. There's just Morgan Creek would come to mind for that. But I'm looking at it and I go, this should never have been a problem that we have to deal with. But it's here. And I don't think it'll be here for very long. I think the government doesn't like competition. And right now, the influence of the media and tech are competing with the influence of the government. And while the media was a very useful tool and tech has been a very useful tool for the government's people in the government are starting to see it as a real problem, which is why Miss Khan over at the FTC is engaged in a hand-to-hand combat version of, antitrust with Amazon right now. So you are about to see some real fireworks. And if they're successful in breaking up Amazon, I think that they'll go on the warpath and proceed with the same playbook to break up some of these other entities. That requires a lot. It really does. But and would Khan survive a change in regime in Washington is the next question. So there's a lot that goes into that. But I can't answer your question other than the antitrust enforcement was incredibly lax. And Apple just wasn't really interested in Pixar. They just weren't. I mean, they thought they were. I mean, George was ready to divest it, so I mean, think about how many times Pixar changed hands, but at least it went along with all the wonderful creatives. You had John Lasseter, which was the reason for success for Pixar. He was forced out because he liked to hug people too long. I kid you not.
Oh, Jesus.
He gave a couple people hugs that were too long. And instead of telling him that directly, they went and complained about him. And so we lost one of the greatest creative thinkers, storytellers that Disney had since probably Walt himself. And it was a real shame. He's over at Skydance now. So they're benefiting from him. But at a certain point in time, this is something most people don't understand. Lasseter had a wonderful partner, and for the life of me, his name escapes me at the moment. But he had a wonderful partner that in crime, in all these wonderful creative endeavors. And he and that person, I'm doing a lot of disrespect to him, and that bothers me. But he and that person were responsible for both Pixar and Disney Animation for a period of time, which they had a lot of very successful things, although the products started to look remarkably similar. You probably can think of the period that I'm talking about. But they were all winners. Now look at Pixar and Disney Animation.
Oh, God,
So it's a real shame. But and again, this is, people will ask, why are you so against companies becoming this big? Pixar's the number one reason. Just look at what they've done. Look at what happened to them. Look at what happened to all animation inside of Disney. They got so big. They had so little competition. They no longer innovate. They no longer are compelled to compete. They're no longer compelled to make good things. People ask me, and I've never put it this bluntly, why are films so bad now, especially Marvel? Why is Marvel so bad? Because it's allowed to be. Because it's so big. Because there are fewer competitors. Because they don't have to go out and earn your dollar. They take you for granted because they think they're the only game in town. And because of the way the businesses are structured right now, they kind of are. Because they also control distribution. Does Disney distribute through anybody else? No. You know, Warner Brothers. Does Warner distribute through anybody else? No. They own the distributors. So it's just, you get into this conversation. It's always competition breeds competitiveness, and it breeds quality. And we have been absent that for a very long time. And I don't think I've heard anybody else put it that way. I think I've done it a few times, talking about why things suck now versus why, it's because they're allowed to. Why is there all the political garbage in these? Well, because it's allowed. Because there's nobody competing with those ideas. And if there were, people would flee to that because they don't want that in their entertainment. There's no escapism as that. So if you want an answer to why certain things suck, it's because because the things around them are too big for competition.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of reasons why you're a wonderful guest, and you just led us to a path I've been wanting to go down. But before we get there, if you happen to be stopping in right now, folks, be it on Rumble, be it on Twitter, be it on YouTube, my name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. This is the ever insightful Culture Casino. We're talking about the business of Hollywood. And you just got to a place where I was going to get this thing to go. And I want to kind of take this path as we start to begin to wrap this up. And that is talk about new entertainment versus old Hollywood. And you and I had discussed this the last time we got together. This has got to be one of the most glorious times in history for innovation, not from old Hollywood. Now, that sounds almost oxymoronic, but what I'm getting at is this. Whereas old Hollywood, Disney, Warner Brothers, name the big name studio, is floundering. They're fat in one form or another. They're lethargic. They're slow. They're just almost like an arthritic in one sense. You've got the youth, the nimbleness, the speed, the innovation of new entertainment. And you could say this in any number of different areas. For example, you've got Eric July with Rippaverse. You've got Razor Fist, you've got Shad M. Brooks, you've got any number of different people. You've got the Epic Verse, which is
Yeah.
Epic Mike and his buddy Josiah Rises. I mean, you've
Yeah.
got a host. I mean, you've got social media content creators, you, me, you got the Critical Drinker. He's writing novels. It is a glorious time
Yes.
to be involved in the creation. We call it the creation of content.
Mhm.
The reality is, to the average person who's watching this, and like, well, let's see, I can watch the Critical Drinker do a review of a movie, or I can watch this guy. Let's see what the drinker's saying,
Yeah.
or whomever. I mean, I just use those names off the top of my head. The question I have is this, and because I want people to come away from this realizing not everything is completely doom and gloom. There is hope, albeit it's out there. But what does new entertainment need to finally supplant old Hollywood? Or has it already happened and we just don't know it yet?
Well, in some sense, you've hit on what entertainment is now. It's this. It's what we're doing. You've already had a viable replacement in place for old Hollywood or even recent Hollywood. YouTube and things like it, similar platforms, Rumble, Odyssey, all these other things. They're suitable replacements for most people for Hollywood because everything's created and distributed in the same place, oftentimes live. Although I do recorded videos, some people do as well. Some people do extensive work and do long form videos. Some people create web series that are based on YouTube that you can watch that are brilliantly done. We have a lot of these wonderful creators in our sphere. So in a sense, it's already happened. We probably don't realize it. But if you're talking about theatrical releases and television products, which streaming services, the more polished version of what we do, there's only two things you need. You need money and distribution. The distribution thing will always be the thing that hangs us up, because there are the independent distributors are few and far between. We need somebody that can get our pictures and shows into theaters or on television. We need that now. For us, the middleman is required. For Disney and Warner Brothers, they bought the middleman and they control them. So it's just different. We need that. And someday I think you're going to see theater owners come to YouTube creators who are making good things. Like I've seen some incredible fan films, Creative Force Films. I did an interview with them about their short film called Gordon. It's in the Batman universe. Brilliantly done, well written, beautifully executed. Everybody there is working in Atlanta, Hollywood quality productions and style. They're doing incredible stuff. You have to go to YouTube to see it.
Okay.
So what they're missing, obviously they don't own that IP, but what they're missing is distribution. That's not the only film they have over there. They have several of them. I go back to a short film that was based on the character Gambit that was done, that was exceptional. And I always forget the name of it, and I always forget who made it. But that's out there on YouTube. Just look for a Gambit fan film. There's Batman fan films out there that deserve our viewing. But all those people need is access to their own IP. Many of them have it. Many of them are interested. Well, look, for example, Rippaverse is the first step in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because he's been in contact with somebody who can help him get his film done and distributed with ISO.
Weren't there flirtations between him and Angel Studios at one point, or am
That's
I?
what I'm saying. That's who I'm calling out, Angel.
Okay.
Yeah, and if that happens, ball game. It changes.
Bar the door.
Yeah, and that changes everything, because then we have a pathway, and you'll see other people launch distribution companies, that can put some tens of millions of dollars behind something, and they'll start shoving it out. Daily Wire was supposed to be that. They don't seem to be interested in making what what I call serial movies, what I call bread and butter movies. They aren't interested in making those. They should be.
Mm-hmm.
They are making good quality films. Don't get me wrong. I mean, but if they want to truly be a distributor, they're going to have to partner with some of these really creative people. Eric July is a good choice, and many others. I mean, I want to see what Josiah and Mike come up with, to be fair. And I think it's possible to crowdsource distribution, but like I said, it's always money and distribution, and I think those are the hurdles. If you want to transition from what we do here to something bigger, well, we've already seen what Eric July's animators can do. Obviously,
yeah, he's like coming out with announcements like it's almost ridiculous the pace at which he's coming out with announcements about comic book writers who are coming to, or either he's coming to them or they're coming to him, and they're saying, "Man, can we do some stuff together?" And all of a sudden, they're getting together, and it's like the Ahsoka, the Saska sisters or Ahsoka sisters.
Yeah, the Saska sisters. Yeah,
yeah.
And now he's got the Bloody Bear in there too. Mike Barron just went over there. So I mean, and Mike Barron's genius. I actually have a couple of his books over here off camera. One of them is the Florida Man, which is fantastic. I mean, it's just great. I bought like everything I could that was Florida Man from him, and Mike's going to do great things. You have all these beautiful creators, these talented people that are going to work for Eric, because the industry as it exists now is so compromised and so devoid of anything interesting. You could say creativity. Some of those people are probably creative, but the problem is they let everything else get in the way of making something. I want somebody with a free mind. It's not bound to a set of rules.
Let me ask you a question talking about creatives, and because I think you bring up something that I don't think a lot of people, including myself, stop to consider. There are individuals who are working in old Hollywood or recent Hollywood, to use your term, and they're much like you say, they're creative, they've got a lot of good ideas, and the Hollywood system is stifling them so badly. They're just sitting there choking in one form or another. They're almost like dying on the vine because it's like, I want to do this stuff and I can't do it because of the politics or the ideology or both. And I guess my question is, I mean, granted, to go back to the first question I asked you in the new vein of conversation, distribution and money. How long is it, or has it already begun that we're seeing a stream of creativity coming out of old Hollywood, and they're going to people like Eric July saying, "Hey man, I'm taking a leap of faith here. I don't know where you are, but if you're where I think you're at, you're the place I want to get to again." Is it happening, or is it about to happen?
I think you're already seeing it. I mean, we've seen some very independent films start to make headway. Most recently, of course, you have the one that Angel Studios picked up, Sound of Freedom and stuff like that. But you're starting to see that more and more. I honestly wish A24 hadn't decided to in order to expand from small to middle, hadn't taken some money that kind of compromised the way they operated. But I guess that's the cost of getting bigger. But it's a cost I wouldn't pay. But I do see a stream of people moving out of it. I can give you an example. Script Doctor, right? Personally, he's moved on. He's got multiple irons in the fire that I can't talk about.
Sure.
Tom Conkle has this amazing project that I can't wait to see. Islands. My brain just turned off. Oh gosh, it's an amazing film project coming out of Australia. I mean, primarily.
Okay.
Oh my gosh. Don't get old. It's terrible. It's terrible.
No, it's pan the rear end.
But it's a fan funded project, and if they get the amount of money that they need, we not only have a go movie, we have an incredible go movie.
Is this the name of
Island in the Stars? Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, Small Time Republic.
Yeah, and I'm back in that film. I may be one of the big backers if I can, scrape all my pennies together, because it would be nice to see my name in a producer credit on something like that. But I'll take a no show producer credit, profit share, whatever. But yeah. That's the other funny thing, right? Is there's a lot of makeup deals. Most people don't know this. If you're involved in a bum project, right, and you've put a lot of money in, they have something called makeups they do in Hollywood, where they'll give you a producer credit. Just throw a junk no show producer credit, but they'll give you like points on a film or something, or a check to cover your oopsie.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that happens more often than you would think. I've seen it happen in television too. I saw, well, can't go into it. It was there's a show called Entourage. I'm just gonna say.
I remember Entourage.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say somebody got a interesting payoff in a weird way through that show. That's all I'll say.
All right, fair enough. I understand. I mean, you talk to a lot of people. Confidences have to be protected. I get it. But yeah, I mean, it's to editorialize here for just a second. I mean, it's just, I've been doing this now for 6 months, and just from a personal standpoint, it amazes me the creativity that doing what I do draws out again.
I can't get the camera to focus.
No, okay. I thought, am I being healed? Am I being healed? Or I mean, what the?
No, I try to get the camera to focus.
Oh, okay.
That's just very soft right now.
So. No, okay. Yeah, it's kind of ethereal and soft. It's all okay. It's just kind of, it amazes me, because it's like, if you ask me to write something, I could probably tell you I'm a creative person when I write. Doing this is absolutely, it's fun, amazing, and it's also like, wow, didn't know I could do that kind of thing. And like I said, I think, and I'm not the only person saying this. You're not the only person saying this, but it's like, we're coming. And as a matter of fact, I remember something you said the last time we talked, and I asked you, I said, how afraid is Hollywood and the media, be it journalism, whatever, how afraid are they of us? And you said it's existential.
It is.
Yeah. And
they're terrified of you. You don't like what they're producing. You are becoming competition. Everybody right now, in this sphere, where we're operating, is potential competition. We call out all of the problems with what's being produced. We talk extensively and in detail about what the shortcomings are, and we have better ideas. If I walk into a panel discussion with like Script Doctor, Tom, Valiant, just all these wonderfully creative people, WW Pro. I mean, I can go through a list of creators.
Sure.
But if I just walk into a conversation with them, in 10 minutes, we have a better idea than what's being made in Hollywood. And again, these are people that, may never have done anything. They may never have written a book. They may never have ever, done anything outside of observed entertainment for their entire life. Most people in our generation, and maybe a couple behind ours, not currently in the current generation, are very creative.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason you're not getting good things right now is because Hollywood was overcome with people that went into entertainment because they wanted the highest end possible job. Yep. So they start out as a reader for a producer or a studio person that, relies on them to read scripts. So what scripts are they getting handed from the reader? All these politically motivated ideological things. They're not getting scripts from somebody like Script Doctor. They're not getting good stuff. Well, now you have people so frustrated they're going to bypass that.
Yeah.
They're at existential crisis because we can make better things. We have no budget. We have no money. I just talked about a film, The Creator, right? The incredible, great filmmaker. He took no budget and made a good film. $85 million later. And this thing looks better than looks better than Flash. It looks better than, Miss Marvel or the Marvels. It looks better than, Aquaman 2. It looks better than all of that. He didn't have the budget for the CGI that any of those did. He didn't have all the technology that any of those did. He shot it on a camera that I can buy, a Sony FX6.
Holy cow.
I can go out, buy this camera, build the same rig he has. I hate that I'm out of focus. But anyway, go out, buy the same rig he has and shoot similarly. He got incredible shots because he could lay down with the camera. He could move around with this little prosumer, we call them, camera. It's built out with, the right setup, the right lenses, the right, filters, everything. And he goes out and he shoots this incredible thing. And Small Time says exactly the right thing, which is why they're terrified. We don't have to adhere to the dying light ideology.
Yep. Yep.
That's all that is. I mean, I'm easily frustrated when it comes to this stuff, but they're terrified, and for every reason they should be, because look at Will, Critical Drinker. Look at him.
Yeah.
In series of novels, he was doing that before he even got big on YouTube. He was writing, and he was frustrated like the rest of us. So what did he do? He launches a YouTube channel. He creates a persona that's not that dissimilar from himself, but obviously he's not a total lush drunk, but he does an extraordinary job breaking down exactly what's wrong with everything that they're doing. There's almost nothing out there that can escape his criticism if it's bad. Yeah. The same thing for Mahler. Look at Mahler. Mahler will spend 4 hours breaking down an episode of something.
Yeah, if you're needing a way to spend a Sunday afternoon and you're trying to figure out, do I want to go watch this movie or not? Yeah, just grab some popcorn and pour yourself one of your favorite beverages and just sit down for about 4 or 5 hours of Mahler as he absolutely takes something apart piece by piece and breaks it down for you.
He eviscerates things.
Oh yeah,
I mean, just destroys them. And you know what? With good reason. Every point he makes is brilliant, and he's not. Look, he's picking nits. No, he's not. He's calling out all of the stuff in this film that absent the. If you remove the politics and you remove the ideology from stuff, it improves just dramatically. Yeah. And Retro Blasting, Michael over at Retro Blasting, just did a 4-hour video on the terribleness of the Indiana Jones film that just came out. Why? Because he's passionate about Indiana Jones. And so Dial of Destiny got his gumption up so much that the hair, his hackles were up. He just went and just destroys this thing. Just destroys it. And for good reason. Again, I always tell people, if you have an idea, do it. If you have a voice, use it. I was featured in, I think, one of the very early Nerd Wars videos saying, if you don't need to be on camera, you don't need a camera. Get a microphone and start a channel. Start talking. And I said specifically then, and I'll say it again now, we need an army of people making stuff. Yep. Because I'm going to say something. It might inspire you. And that you might go on to be incredibly successful, and good on you, we just need more, because I don't want to live in the world where we have very banal entertainment. I don't want to live in a world where it's superficial and monotheistic and bland. I don't want a constant diatribe of why I'm particularly bad, and we have to bow down to and worship, some kind of an ideology that is consistently inconsistent. My favorite sport now is to watch these people tear each other apart. In light of what's going on right now, which I don't really want to talk to other than to reference it, they're destroying each other, the people who supposedly live within these ideologies. So good on them. Have at it. This is why your ideology is bologna sausage. I know I'm on your channel and I could probably say more harsh words, but
you're at liberty to say whatever you want. I don't care.
Yeah, well, I say I still am going to be family friendly.
Well, we'll call Bravo Sierra exactly what it is, Bravo Sierra.
There you go.
But I mean, yeah, I mean, I think this is just my take for what it's worth. I think we're reaching a point where something's got to give, and here's what I'm getting at. And feel free to disagree with me if you want to. We're reaching the point where the average consumer of entertainment, be it television, film, comic books, video games, whatever, they're realizing this stuff is crap. And when I say something's got to give, you have old Hollywood, old entertainment industry here on one side. On the other, you have the people that we've been talking about in one form or another, in one genre or another. This is going to come to a collision, and something's got to give. And I got a feeling for the moment, because of the money and the distribution, old Hollywood, current Hollywood may win. But sooner or later, the money's going to dry up. They won't be able to distribute the way they did through the normal means they've always had available. And because of the nimbleness, their creativity, and the ingenuity of new media, be it new journalism, be it new comic book, be it new video, be it new video game, whatever it may be, the newness, the nimbleness, the creativity is going to inevitably overtake old Hollywood. And we're going to see potentially a golden age here.
Yeah, but see, and it always rises out of the terrible darkness. Wow. There are two interviewers that I always forget their names. They interviewed a famous executive that had been putting together television and film forever, and I can't remember his name. But they got together and had a conversation, and he talked about all the ways that Hollywood is failing, and that this exact same thing had happened before. It happened before. It'll happen again. So, but we are looking at a resurgence. I think you're 100% right. I think, and it's going to be led by y'all, all y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we start to wrap this up, as always, you are welcome back on the front porch anytime you want to come on here. And if you got something that's on the brain and you're like, I gotta go somewhere and talk about it, dude, just give me the shout. I'll bring you on. I'll give you the floor. But for people who don't know where you are, where can they find you on social media? Where can they find you anywhere? Let's get people plugged into what you're talking about. Let's let people hear information that maybe they're not hearing for the first time.
Well, you can find me here. I tried to make it really simple. Culture Casino. You can find me there on YouTube, Rumble, Minds, Odyssey, Getter, the platform formerly known as Twitter. Decent chance I'm making a fool of myself on somebody else's channel as well. Which is oftentimes Midnight's Edge, Valiant Renegade, That Park Place, WDW Pro, Comics Division in particular. Those are my guys and ladies. And there's a decent chance if you look, you'll find me. But if you check out, I'm now doing something different on Twitter and pre-promoting a lot of content. So if you do follow me on Twitter, you'll get an insight into what things are available on the channel for the day. And I'll get back to doing the DIY channel in the future. And you guys can check out the beginning to end greenhouse I'm about to build this fall.
Cool. That sounds great.
Yeah.
Well, folks, this is Culture Casino. My guest, he's been an absolute joy to talk to again. And like I say, anytime he wants to come on here, he's got the floor. So anyway, if you're not subscribed to his channel, check him out. If you're not following on Twitter, check him out. By all means, give this man your attention. He's laying out information you've got to be hearing if you want to be informed about what is going on in the entertainment industry. My name is Brian Trippett. I'm the Front Porch Conservative. Folks, we're going to be back tomorrow night with another gentleman that I've been fairly itching to get on the front porch, and that is conservatish. Peter Feliciano will be here tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Eastern. We'll be on YouTube, Twitter, and Rumble. So, folks, been a pleasure seeing you. Culture, hang on for a second. We'll say some proper goodbyes. Everybody, thank you for stopping by the front porch tonight, and have a wonderful